So let's assemble one axle now. Let's do the front axle because it's a little bit more difficult than the rear axle, because so many of you did have problems to get smoothly running axles in the WPL C34KM, including me. I had to remove a lot of paint, but finally I got all those axles perfectly smoothly running. What will we need? You will need your normal Phillips head screwdriver, and concerning those Phillips head screwdrivers, meanwhile, I highly do recommend, you won't need a Phillips head 00 or 00 really for assembling the C34 or the C44KM. I only needed it for the shifting servo, which has very small screws, but probably it wouldn't have been necessary. But normally I did most of the mounting with a 10 Phillips head screwdriver, and I found that a larger Phillips screwdriver, number 1, those are both number 1, is much better for assembling the kit, mainly in those screws in the frame. So for starting, maybe a 0 is handier, but those screws are really weak and the caps are weak and they break easy. And if you use one of those larger number 1 screwdrivers, Phillips number 1, you can not break those so easily, and I highly recommend to use number 1. Start with a 0 to screw it in a little bit, and then use number 1. For the Phillips head screws of the axles, you can also use this number 1, but more delicate work starting maybe with a 0. I also do have a number 1 on my IXO. Any mods and upgrades necessary to get a perfectly smoothly running axle in the C44KM? Nearly not. Honestly, the only thing you urgently will have to do, probably in yours too, to remove the paint of 2 of the pins in this red axle gear cover. You will have to remove the paint in this side. So if you take a look on the axle, it's the left side where those 2 smaller holes are. In the larger holes, I don't know why those holes are of different diameter. The pins with paint easily can slip in, but in the smaller holes on the left side here, if you don't remove the paint, it's hardly possible or even impossible to push the axle housing cover firmly into the axle. And I did this already now off camera. Simply used blade, whatever blade you want, and remove the paint. You don't have to remove all the paint as I did in my other builds. Remove the paint of those 2 pins and you will be good. Further, the kit again comes with those tiny 3mm grub screws. You need a 1.5mm hex driver. It comes with the kit too, and I think they are bad. They are very short, and so they will easily break if you wanna disassemble your kit once and they are not strong and the thread is weak. So if you can, use longer grub screws. I will use those longer ones in most places, so they are really cheap. You can use the longer ones in nearly all places of the kit. So in the drive shaft, it doesn't matter if you have a little bit too long grub screw and it sticks out a tiny weeny little bit. In the shafts, in the gears, well, there are no gears in this kit. In the C44 and the C34 you will have to mount gears with grub screws. in the shafts and in the gears, in the axles, it's no problem at all. And also for the front axle, mounting those universal steering joints, it's no problem at all if your grub screws are a little bit too long. The only part you can't use, you will have to use grub screws, maybe longer ones that come with the kit, but that will not stick out of the this hex part, which will come on the rear axle. And why is this? In the rear axle there is nearly no space, so it will rub if the grub screw sticks out a little bit. If you have a perfectly fitting grub screw, use it instead of the grub screw coming with the kit, which is short and weak. If you do not have, you will not be able to use a little bit longer screw. So, and now I will show you how to make a perfectly smoothly running axle in front of camera. I hope it will work. I didn't have any problems with my first kit, and I expect this working the same way now. Put the manual in front, and why this? Check the directions. You can mix this up. So check the directions. Take your front axle. The part without paint is the part that's in front here, where this cover with pinion will be put on. So the part with the paint, black paint, on your side. If you mix this up, axles won't go in the correct directions. So put it in front of you and check it with the manual. The red cover, where we have removed the paint, in front of you. So that's the way it will work. Then take the short shaft and put it on your axle or in front of your axle. You know we will have to use this gear on this part, so I put it in that way and check that's the correct way. It will not work that way, the flat spot, it will work that way. So I will push the gear on the shaft, and we will need 4 of the small ball bearings that come with the kit, 4 of the larger ones for the knuckles and the gears and the bushings and the screws that come with the kit. Now put all 4 of those small bearings on this shaft, 2 on each side. One comes to the gear and the other one stays outside on the outer side. The next one and the next one. And now let's put this inside. Push the ball bearings, of course, they have their place here, and the outer ones have their place on the outer side. That's okay, that's okay. It's as much in as it can go. And now move the shaft so that it sticks out of the axle about the same length right and left as it is now. And now first let's mount the universal shafts or the universal joints. So I put this universal joint on its place here. It goes a little bit harder. What's up here? Okay, now it's on. Back again. Will this have problems too? Or does this? Oh, there's the grub screw inside. Does this work smoothly? Let's check it first. Okay, this one also does have some slight problems to slip on the axle. This was not the case in my first kit. however. Let's try to mount this again and to put the ball bearings on the correct position here, here and on the outer side. And now let's find the flat spot of the axle. Okay, so this seems to be fine. There's no play here, but it's also not pushed extremely firm to the center, so that way it should work. We can make a test. Seems to work. Flat spot here, flat spot here, and now let's mount the two grub screws of the universal joints. Use Loctite for this. You can use Loctite later on too, but I will make a perfectly working. So a little bit of Loctite, second grub screw for the outside, mounted. So runs smoothly and perfectly so far. You see, I do not have any grub screw or any mount on the center gear so far. Seems to run perfectly smooth, no play at all. Tiny little bit, but that's okay, this should be. So let's put the gear inside of this cover. Therefore we also will need two ball bearings. I forgot. Two more of the small ones. Those ball bearings seem to be nicely lubricated. I often use bearing oil for ball bearings in axles, but I guess it's not necessary here. So now let's push this inside. You can use a bearing pusher, but it's not necessary. You see, it slips in easily. There is no paint and it goes in all way. And on the outer side there will have to be mounted a bearing too, also gets in easily. And now let's take this pineapple gear. Seems to work fine. And now check it on the side where there is no paint. Put it on and let's hope everything still runs smoothly. Seems quite smoothly, little bit, but not bad. I still did not mount the grub screw here, so I first will check if it really works, and then I will mount the grub screw, and then I will use lubricate the gears. Come on guys. No, it's okay. And does it still run? Well, rather smoothly. It's okay. Still running rather smoothly, but I do not have the screws. So let's mount the screws. Still without any lubrication. Because there's a lot to screw, even if there's no thread in the beginning. Here it's nice to use the help of a power drill. Still runs smoothly, and the last part I will do by hand and not with the power drill with a screwdriver. Take number 1. You will be surprised if you did not so far how much easier this is with a WPL screws using a huge number 1 screwdriver, but you can also use a smaller number 1 screwdriver instead of a 0 screwdriver. But I like the big handle, and you can easily screw and feel how far you should get in. Okay, and now it's totally closed, and now we have to hope it still turns. No, it does not. So I probably have to turn it back outside a little bit, and still no turn. So I'm in trouble now, guys. But now it does turn. Stick down a little bit. So, and not smoothly. So what to do? I did have this problem in my other C44 axles too. Make it run smoothly. Use whatever Proxon, Dremel, whatever you have. Screw it on and let it run. I hope it is not too loud. It will get warm here. Faster. Faster. Let it run a little bit. Okay. Nice and warm, but not hot. And now it runs really smooth. Check it. I do not necessarily have to screw this really firmly. So now I will open this again, the cover, and mount the last grub screw. Runs smoothly now. Now I find the flat spot of the shaft. It's here, and okay, now it's not here anymore. Use the last grub screw, and here you can use really a large grub screw. It will not affect the function in any way. Loose. So check it again. Running smoothly, flat spot, and put the grub screw in, and now it's firm. Yes, this should work already that way, but I still do not lubricate the gears because it could be I will have to open this again when mounting the steering knuckles. So the last thing I will do, if the steering knuckles are mounted, then I will lubricate those gears. So I will close this again now and try see if it works that way, or I will have to remove all screws. No, works fine. Works quite nicely, still has to be lubricated, and I will run the Dremel again on this, but first now let's mount the steering knuckles. This normally works well, but could be a problem if the steering knuckles push those parts on the inner side too firmly. So let's press those bushings, or however those are called, inside. Don't fall out. The steering knuckles, they are mirrored, so no, they are not mirrored, they are the same. Doesn't matter which steering knuckle you use, but the arms have to point in front direction. So here drive shaft, here servo arm of the steering knuckle. Use Loctite here too, and use those 4 small screws that come with the kit. Loctite, I will put a little bit of Loctite in the threads and not on the screws. 1, 2, 1, 2. So, lost the pushing. Where is it here? Let's put on. Of course, you have to use those 4 large ball bearings, and here I did also have troubles with my first kit to press this inner ball bearing in fully. So I have a bearing puller, you can use this, but I found those watch hammers, maybe you have some of those at home, really cheap, really handy sometimes. One plastic end. This one. So now it's in. Because if this bearing is not in far enough, you can have some pressure on the joint here, and this will give problems too. So okay, that's even a little bit awkward. This steering knuckle is worse than the ones I had in my first kit, but fully inside now. Pushing, and of course you should put the Loctite on the threads after you remove, you press the ball bearings in. So that's the way it's mounted, and hopefully I lost one of those bushings again. Now I will use the smaller screwdriver because it's handier to work. Don't have to mount those screws really firmly. If you have problems with the steering knuckles moving in that direction, there seems to be some rubbing or something like this, you can try to bend those arms a little bit outside or inside. I had those problems in one axle once. So, and yeah, second one. Easy. So both arms work perfectly, everything turns quite smoothly, and let's use a little bit of Dremel help again. You see, turning, everything fine. And if your stuff, sorry, I guess you wouldn't hear me now. If your axle doesn't run smoothly, it's really running smoothly now, even if I did not yet lubricate it. First try to loosen those screws a little bit, so still firm but not very firm. And if this also does not help, use a Dremel or something and let it run, let it run, let it run. And if this also does not help, take a look if there is somewhere paint. Maybe you did not get the same new axles as I got, and if not, you can, I do have quite a lot of upgrade gears, and you can try different gears, but it should work. So this is the third axle of the C44 now, which really runs nicely, smoothly, nearly perfectly. Now it's time to open this again and to lubricate it, and then it will run even smoother. And then maybe I will use the Dremel again and let it run on a Dremel or a drill for some minutes, and it's really okay. So I can only say thumbs up, WPL. That's a big improvement to the axles of the C34 and the cheap axles we could buy. But this improvement is only because they did not paint the whole axle parts. So the paint was the main problem before. There do come shims with the kit, tiny shims, but I did not need those shims. Check it out, it's nearly perfect, and I'm very happy, and I hope all of you guys will be that satisfied with those axles too. Only modification needed: remove the paint of those two pins here, and if you have, use longer grub screws. It's better for all parts but those connectors of the rear axle.